What will Greg Roman do to the Los Angeles Chargers this season? How do you handle Josh Jacobs in FantasyPros Championships drafts right now as you chase $1 million grand prize? And what is the proper way to handle Chicago Bears with or without Justin Fields, with or without Caleb Williams in the FFPC Never Too Early drafts this season? Plus, the 2023 $260,000 winner, Kullin Hoffman, is here to talk about how he dominated this past season in the best ball tournament in the FFPC, the FFPC Playoff Challenge, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Terpoli is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts right now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am your host, Eric Balkman, slightly above average host Eric Balkman. It is presented by myffpc.com, myffpc.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. My co-host is normally the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. He's a little bit under the weather this weekend, so we gave him the weekend off. And who else would we bring in? Mr. Tony Pollard, number one fan. Just kidding, Terp. It is Dave Terpoli at Dave Terp on Twitter. Dave, welcome in. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight.
How we doing?
We're doing good. We're excited to talk to Kullin tonight. We're excited to talk about everything going on with the FFPC. Obviously, the Fantasy Pros Championship launching the earliest it ever has by about 4 months maybe this season. And I think the thing that we understand, Terp, and you would know this better than anybody. High stakes players, there is no off season. There's constantly always something going on, and you can always take advantage of it when you draft early. And while I know the free agency hasn't started, the NFL draft hasn't started, the wheels and the gears of fantasy football players in their mind have already started. And there's stuff going on.
It never stops, and there's a lot of movement that's going to be coming here this week, and obviously with the draft coming up, free agency, there's a lot of unknown, and this year probably more than the last couple, I would say. There's so many like Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. We can keep going on the list of players that have no role, have no team, and are pretty much like stuck out there. But all three players I just mentioned were top 2-round draft picks last year. So yeah, these guys are plummeting down draft boards because of the unknown. And if you can figure out a situation or two that work out, I mean, you could be sitting with a monster if you draft early. There's obviously risk involved, but there's risk involved with any time you draft early. But if you can, figure out the Kyron Williams and the Pukas and the guys like that were getting drafted in the 19th, 20th round of drafts last year, got moved up a little bit when it came down to September, but not crazy. I mean, that's what separates all those teams that made it deep. They were 19th round Kyron Williams, 18th round Kyron Williams, Puka, we just mentioned, things like that.
So I don't normally like to focus on NBA or basketball, and we won't tonight, but I will bring this to everybody's attention. Number one, I'm waiting for my Milwaukee Bucks to tip off the last third of the season, the post-All-Star break edition of the NBA season against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's coming up on ESPN. But they could not play on ESPN until Terp's Philadelphia 76ers disposed of the number. Hold on.
There's no Terps. We're not.
Hold on. So you're not a Sixers fan, Terp?
I mean, I'm not losing sleep.
Okay. So we could not get to my Bucks until Terp's quasi-fandom of the 76ers disposed of the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers, from the Spectrum or whatever they're calling it. I don't know what they're calling it now, Terp. You know better than me. The Sixers beat the Cavs, and breaking news, Steve Kerr has just agreed to a 2-year, $35 million contract extension with the Golden State Warriors. He is now the highest paid coach in NBA history. Unbelievable stuff. Nobody cares about it.
$17 million a year.
For the high, and he's now the highest paid coach in NBA history, which is crazy to think about. But we're here to talk football tonight. And coming up on tonight's show, we are going to get into Clint Kubiak's role for the Saints and how he's going to change things or maybe not change things for Alvin Kamara. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts. We had a couple of emails tonight, Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, and another email on Kenneth Walker, which I think is kind of interesting. And then Kullin Hoffman, a guy who finished 6th in the 2023 FFPC Best Ball Tournament, 1st and 2nd in the $35 FFPC Playoff Challenge, and 2nd overall in the $200 FFPC Playoff Challenge. All that together, $260,000. Terp, I was
Crazy.
talking to one of my my co-hosts on my local show here in Northeast Wisconsin, where Kullin is from, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I was talking to one of my co-hosts, and he said, has this ever been done before? And I said, well, we had the Go Bills guys win back-to-back in the main event. We had Abib Agbatoba win back-to-back in the FPC. We had Zach Toyo this year win the Best Ball Tournament and the $200 FFPC Playoff Challenge. But Kullin, 1st and 2nd in the $35, 2nd overall in the $200, and he was 6th place overall in the Best Ball. That is a massive, massive season, Turk.
1,000%. I mean, you can't ask for, when you start the season and you can get one of those, you'd be excited.
Oh,
let alone all three. I mean, that's just ridiculous when you really look at it. Just, to get all the combinations right. Best ball's hard enough to come in the top. You said 60 came in this year. That's just an impressive feat. But then the playoff challenge, I mean, there's so many combinations. And if you get one guy wrong, you're pretty much dust. I mean, to get all those combinations right on a lot of teams that won that really weren't like, people always try to get too crazy with those teams. And chalky teams are pretty much what did it this year. So impressive for him. And I can't wait to talk to him.
For the zillionth year in a row, we have seen people, and Terp, I'm sure people talk to you about this too. For the zillionth year in a row, that is the team that won 500,000. That is the team that won.
I looked at it. I'm just like, all right, a tweak here, a tweak there, but like there was nothing where you looked at it, you were like there was like the outlier guys. Like nobody had I'm using a random name, but like nobody went on the Chiefs and took MVS.
Right.
And you were just like, wow, MVS, like this guy got crazy and he won. All the guys that got picked were pretty like chalky, and like there was a tweak here and there. Aaron Jones was big, and guys like that, but like, geez, that's impressive.
The Cleveland Brown to own this year, and I'd have to go to Fantasy Mojo, at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter, fantasymojo.com. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes, the guy who keeps track of all this stuff. I'd have to go on there to see who rostered Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was the correct Cleveland Brown to roster this year. And yet everybody who won had David Njoku because he was 2nd. So if you would have had Kareem Hunt, you would have had a leg up on everybody else. But unfortunately, everybody who had Kareem Hunt didn't have the chalk behind Kareem Hunt. And that's why they ended up falling short here tonight.
Correct.
Okay, so Terp, we'll get into the playoff challenge in a little bit. Let's get into some draft stuff for 2024. Greg Roman, who is the new Chargers offensive coordinator, according to The Athletic, when he talked to the media, he really emphasized balance and having a, quote, strong, powerful identity when he was introduced as the OC for the Chargers. Now, Greg Roman is the new OC under Jim Harbaugh. Apparently, they're not going to be changing anything, and they will lean on the run much more so than Brandon Staley and his OCs over the past few years. Quote from Roman, "We want to be able to run it when we want to run it and throw it when we want to throw it. If they present looks that are favorable to run it, then we want to be able to run it at a high level. Every place I've been, that's kind of been the goal, to try to have that complete attack. But I think in this league, you can really help dictate to defenses if you have a strong running attack." Now, the Chargers beat writers, to their credit, followed up with that. Like, okay, you have Justin Herbert, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. How do you sort of equate that or supplement what he's able to do passing the ball with running the ball? Roman said, quote, "That's where you have to come back to what your ultimate concern is. And for us, it's winning." Now, we know that Justin Herbert will probably not be throwing the ball as much as he has in previous years under Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore, so on and so on. We have to figure out how much he is going to decline in his throwing when we think about drafting Justin Herbert as our starting quarterback this year. Justin Herbert is probably going to have to be more efficient to make him more desirable in fantasy circles this year, with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh controlling things. Terp, I look at the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament ADP, fantasymojo.com, and at Fantasy Mojo on X, and Justin Herbert is now being drafted as quarterback 10. He is going behind Fields. He is going behind Burrow, Prescott, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud. You can get Justin Herbert in this single quarterback drafted league. Justin Herbert, quarterback 10 at the 805. Is that too far for him? Has the hate gone too far on Herbert based on them hiring Greg Roman? Or is this a value here that you see?
I don't think so. I think he's exactly where he should be going. If anything, he should be going a little lower right now, because there's so many things that need to get figured out with Chargers land right now. Who's running the ball? Whoever's running the ball, it will be an outstanding fantasy pick, because we know Greg Roman. We know Jim Harbaugh. They love running the football. Yep. So whoever they get, whether they get one of these veterans for cheap because they're massively over the salary cap, or they get one of these, young rookies like Corum they keep talking about from Michigan, the later round guys, we'll see. But whoever gets that job, 1-2 guys, they're both going to be very, very valuable. The thing that worries me about Herbert is, you're reading these quotes, and Roman has always showed his cards pretty well. I mean, he's not a guy who's going to be chucking the ball around. And that's what Herbert does, I guess, the best. I mean, but we have so much unknown there, too. We have Keenan Allen, who's getting up there in age. Outstanding last year, but still getting up there in age. Mike Williams, who probably won't be there, or if he is, who knows if he's 100% coming off another major injury. Mm-hmm. Tight end position, Everett, not really that good. Eckler, we don't know. There's just so much unknown right now with that offense. The offensive line, never great, very average. They say they want to run the ball, and that's great, but I don't know. I'm very worried about the Chargers right now. I think they're going to be a better team, but I don't know right now if you could invest early stock in some of these guys where they're going. Like Herbert, I'll take my chances if I don't get one of those guys you mentioned that went above him, taking one or two of the guys that go below him and being okay with it right now. That could change. It's barely March. So, there's a lot of things that could change when things settle down, but I feel like you got to wait for them to settle down when it comes to that factor.
Yeah, it would make perfect sense. It's interesting because you can cash in on some value with the Chargers right now, but that value might turn out to be the opposite of value once we get deeper into free agency, deeper into the NFL draft season.
Because
then, of course, when training,
in all seriousness, Chargers guys that you're drafting right now are Herbert and Keenan Allen. The rest, you don't even know if they're going to be on the team next year. You're
really rolling dice.
Certain spots you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying on value on certain players, we'll go to your beloved Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of guys that are going at good values right now. Mm-hmm. Jones, Christian Watson, coming off all those injuries, Musgrave, guys like that Wicks. You even say Romeo Dobbs, even Jaden Reed is he's definitely the highest out of all of them, but they're all at value right now. And you can take more chances on them and be right, because that's pretty much going to be the tree. There's not going to be any guys I don't think that they're going to add in there right away. But with the Chargers, you're drafting Herbert, you're drafting Keenan Allen, and that's really all you can say is set in stone right now. That's a massive, massive, massive worry.
Massive worry indeed. And before we get to the meat of the show, I want to chime in with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the YouTube chat right now. So number one, Ryan Romanesco chiming in, who's watching us on YouTube, talking about our guest tonight, Kullin Hoffman. He said, once I went to Tigers with Kullin Hoffman, no big deal. I've been to Tigers Tavern in glorious Kimberly, Wisconsin. Never been there with Kullin Hoffman before, but I know it's a popular place. So shout out to Ryan Romanesco there. Dom Guzzetti, who says, is this evil twin again, Balky? I got Voodoo Ranger IPA Hoppy Pack going. Have not had the Hoppy Pack from Voodoo Ranger yet. This is the Riot Down Under from Prison City Brewing. Prison City Brewing, located in glorious Auburn, New York. No idea where that is, except for I know it's in New York State. That's what I'm enjoying right now, Dom. So that's what I have on that. And then, Terp, we have breaking news here, brought to you by Choose Your Sponsor. I don't have one here tonight. Ian Rappaport has just chimed in on X tonight. The Cincinnati Bengals will be tagging T. Higgins, and he will remain under the tag for the 2024 season. Terp, I think this is interesting on a lot of levels. Number one, they have to pay Jamar Chase. They've already been paying Joe Burrow. They're probably going to let Tyler Boyd go. So they tag T. Higgins this year. What does that do for you for fantasy drafts? Chase is already going, as I look at my my trusty ADP here from Fantasy Mojo, as wide receiver 4 at the 106. T. Higgins, people were drafting in the Never Too Early tournament in the Fantasy Pros Championship as kind of a question mark, but now we know he will be tagged and he will be with the Bengals this coming season. T. Higgins, wide receiver 29 at the 502. We got to hop all over that ADP right now. We got to hop in on getting T. Higgins at that 4-5 turn, right?
100%. I mean, I was off T. Higgins last year. At that ADP, I'm all in on him. I mean, you losing Boyd, questions at the tight end position, Burrow coming back, being hopefully 100% and getting that ball rolling again. You know, obviously the Jamar Chase on the other side. You gotta. This is why you draft early, a player like T. Higgins, because in a month from now, 2 months from now, when May rolls around and everybody wakes up and starts drafting, T. Higgins is not going to be going right there. So this is where the early drafting can help you out.
The Kev Wheeler from the 33rd team chiming in tonight. Auburn, New York, he says he believes was the site of the first
some good knowledge
execution in the United States. Now, here's the thing. I love Kev. Kev has co-hosted shows with me before. I don't know if anybody should possess that specific knowledge, Turk. I don't know if anybody should.
That worries me a little bit. Just a little bit.
I mentioned Auburn, New York. 10 seconds later, he's already got this in the YouTube chat. I don't know if that's proper, but it is what it is. Kev, we love you. Fantastic stuff there. We got Kullin Hoffman coming in here in just a couple of minutes here, the $260,000 winner in the FFPC last year. Before we get to him, the last thing I want to get to here, Terp, Josh Jacobs. Tashawn Reed, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders for The Athletic, says the Raiders have not engaged in any kind of contract talks with Josh Jacobs. Now, the Raiders are probably not going to place the franchise tag on Jacobs this year. They did it to him last year, and it's probably not going to happen this year because it would cost them a shade under $14 million to do so. So if you are going to sign Josh Jacobs, you'd be better off getting a multi-year deal with him prior to the franchise tag deadline. Jacobs, obviously, he was never going to live up to what he did in 2022. Had some injuries in 2023, but it seems like he's a good guy in the clubhouse, good guy in the locker room. And Antonio Pierce, who is the interim turned permanent head coach, at least for now, of the Raiders, seems to like Josh Jacobs as well. The Raiders have a ton of cap space, so if they wanted to sign Jacobs, they certainly could. The Raiders, new GM Tom Telesco of the Raiders has invested in that position specifically in previous stops. So I think that's a little concerning for Josh Jacobs. But if we look at his ADP in the Never Too Early FFPC Best Ball Tournament, Josh Jacobs, running back 15 at the 506. That is where he is going right now. So if you want to take Jacobs, you can technically, ostensibly, get what we think is going to be a starting running back in the mid-fifth round this year. Josh Jacobs going at the 506. That is right around, right after James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry. We'll get into Kenneth Walker later on in the show. And it's before Tyjae Spears, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson. Your thoughts, Terp, on grabbing Josh Jacobs right now in the mid-fifth round before we know who he's going to be playing with and what his contract status is going to be for 2024?
So there's a couple things here. Zamir White looked really good last year in the small dose that you saw him at the end of the season. Is he better than Josh Jacobs? I don't think so, but he is cheaper. But a team like the Raiders they're not really worried about cheap. They have plenty of cap room. They have no quarterback they're paying. No real quarterback they can get. There's no chance they're going to get up in the top 3 and get one of these guys. So they're probably in the veteran market, or Russell Wilson, maybe a Justin Fields type of situation. So they can pay Josh Jacobs. I mean, this is a perfect example of drafting early again. If Josh Jacobs signs with the Raiders, he's moving up that board.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're paying him, they're going to give him the ball. Antonio Pierce likes him. Like you say, he's good in the clubhouse. It seems like a lot of the teams speak highly of him. But, he wasn't great last year. So on a team like the Raiders, who really have a long way to go, I mean, I know they look better at the end of the season, but they still have no quarterback. There's still questions if Devontae Adams is going to be there. Yeah, the defense played a lot better under Pierce, but we got to see if that can last over a season to see if it's going to be substantial. So I like Josh Jacobs. I like where he's getting drafted right now. I haven't really jumped into the drafting yet, but if I were to jump in, it would definitely be, taking him where he's going right now.
So Terp, I think I'm hearing you correctly here. Even if you had a running back in the first 4 rounds and Josh Jacobs is staring you in the face in the mid-5th, you're still hopping on board and grabbing him as your second running back. Even if you already have a running back on your squad.
Everything all comes down to roster construction. We've talked about that a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. Like there's only probably 3 running backs I would take in the first so often rounds with these receivers, just dominating like they did last year. I mean, if your name's not McCaffrey, Hall, or Bijan Robinson, I probably would be happy just going 0 RB the first 4 rounds and just seeing what plays out because there's so many running backs with so much unknown right now. We talked about Jacobs. We talked about Henry. We talked about Tony Pollard. We talked about, Stevenson coming off, a down year. We can keep going down this list of these guys.
Right.
And these guys could all be there for the taking back to back to back if you really want them. So play the unknown right now. Get as many receivers as you can early. If you don't get one of them top 3 running backs, guys like Josh Jacobs are fine to start a team with.
I think it's important to understand too, Terp, if you end up drafting in the FFPC Never Too Early tournaments, or quite frankly, the FantasyPros Championship, where you can win $1 million with live drafts going on right now. I think the thing is, if you draft Josh Jacobs in the mid-5th, and it doesn't work out or whatever, or maybe it does work out, then you already have your shares of him in the mid-5th, which then you can avoid him the remainder of draft season.
He won't drop if he doesn't go back to the Raiders, he's going to be a starting running back somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Likely. 70-30 guy at the very worst on a team. So in the 5th round, that's okay. Is it what you want? No. But if he goes to one of these, spots that seem just too good to be true that are out there, he lands in Baltimore or he lands in, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I'm going to throw one to you in a second, but keep going.
Go ahead. If he lands in like a Baltimore or like a Cincinnati type of situation where on offense is ascending, has a ton of talent, he could be easily pay off that 5th round ADP.
Right. What about this? And I know this might hit home, or not hit home, but the opposite of home, because I know you're a Tony Pollard guy. What about if he signs with Dallas? What if the Raiders let him go and Dallas signs him as the 1A and Pollard resumes the 1B role? Not only would that improve Josh Jacobs' fantasy status, it would improve Tony Pollard's status as well, right?
It would, because last year we all know Tony Pollard was a complete and utter disaster. He was injured. He really wasn't that good. There's a lot of combinations. He didn't catch a lot of passes. The Dallas running back position, I don't know if it would be the most exciting compared to, like, so we'll say Baltimore, because, I mean, you kind of saw last year, was it Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdell? I mean, they threw the ball a ton, and I don't think they're going to stop doing that. I mean, that was a success last year. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Ferguson, Dak was the best quarterback in fantasy football most of the time, except the playoffs. Sorry.
It's okay. So we're good. We're good.
We're good on that. I've been waiting for that for like a month.
Right.
Oh, the Cowboys.
Listen, once we get to the Cowboy, we could go 3 hours deep on this.
Easily.
I want to stop you from this because we have to get to our guest.
Let's do it. He deserves it.
He deserves it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing him on right now. A guy who finished 6th place overall in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, 2nd place overall in the $200 FFPC Playoff Challenge, 1st and 2nd place overall in the $35 FFPC Playoff Challenge. And for the first time ever, to my recollection, we are bringing on a guest from my hometown. I could probably get over to his house.
That's just crazy, too.
No, here's the thing. I could leave right now from where I'm at my work and drive 10 minutes, and I'd be right in his frame on his camera.
Impressive.
You follow him on X at Kullin23. Please welcome, literally, the pride of Appleton, Wisconsin, Kullin Hoffman, joining the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Kullin, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate you hopping on, and a happy early kickoff to your weekend, dude. How are you?
What an introduction. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, boys. Appreciate it. I'm doing great.
So the thing is, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, Kullin is I don't want to say he's a caller. He's a contributor to my local fantasy football show here in Appleton, Wisconsin for many years. And I've said, and I think, Kullin, you can corroborate this, I've said for many years, based on the questions that you call in with, I'm like, Kullin should be hosting this show. Kullin should have his own show because I don't even know how to answer him. And now here we are. You win $260,000 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament and Playoff Challenges combined, which is an absolute crazy sum. We're going to get into how you got there and sort of like what it was like watching, you get yourself there. Before we get to it, when you are not crushing all these tournaments in the FFPC, tell all the listeners and all the viewers tonight what you're doing in glorious Appleton, Wisconsin, when you're not winning all this fantasy football money.
Yeah, and a little note on that. I discovered FFPC because of calling into the radio show and following you on Twitter. So thank you, sir. I wouldn't have found this website without you. Appreciate it. I'm a utility locator, so I locate for the city of Fox Crossing, Kaukauna, Little Chute. Then we do some stuff in Northeast Wisconsin as well.
I love it. This is surreal to me because I'm hearing all these towns and cities mentioned on a national podcast that I always hear on my local radio show, which is fantastic here. And you are repping. You got to show this off. The Scuba's Poorhouse hoodie. We're on
yes,
tonight.
Sir.
Where
you are literally in heaven tonight.
Oh, this is fantastic. Scuba's Poorhouse has been the home of many local radio remotes for the NFL draft, for fantasy football parties and everything. So Kullin is repping hard tonight. This is fantastic to have you on. I feel like if I would have been thinking, I would have had you over and you could have done. I would have supplied.
Yeah, joint stream, absolutely.
Right, like that. Just have you on the same camera shot tonight because this is great stuff. Terp, you have another question about the playoff challenge.
So when you're not crushing, you already did that one. When you watch your team rise up the leaderboards to first and second, and you had to sweat the last 2 weeks, how was that feeling? What were you worried about? How was just the home? Did you tell a lot of people about it? Did they all know what was going on?
Yeah, so me and my brother actually did a team together, and when I think it was the divisional round at the end of it, that's when I started going up the leaderboards, and my daughter's had a gymnastics competition that weekend, so I wasn't watching any football, and wow. I got home and I got a text message from my brother, I think he said you're on the top of the leaderboards or whatever, and I looked, and I was in first and second in the 35 and second in the 200 at the end of the divisional, and somehow held all the way through championship and Super Bowl, which is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, so let's just get into your mindset. When you found out, when your buddy told you this, that you're like, hey man,
my brother
or your brother, excuse me. Your brother said you're at the top of the leaderboard. You see it for yourself. Immediate reaction. What do you think? Is this real life? I expected this. What's your immediate reaction?
Well, Josh Allen lost, so I was just like, yeah,
right.
This is cool. This is cool for now, but this is not going to stay that way. It's cool to look at. I was kind of mad that he told me. I wish he wouldn't have told me because my plan was not to look at all. It's just like nothing's going to change. I'll maybe
till after the Super Bowl. That's what
or maybe even before the Super Bowl, like in the 2 weeks or something, see where I'm sitting. But I'm like, I honestly didn't want to know. I was kind of mad because it was a close game. Allen, they missed that, wide right, Buffalo wide right, missed that field goal, and I thought that was the end of the dream. And somehow Lamar Jackson doesn't do much and loses, and yeah.
Okay, so it's not real for you at this point.
No.
After and I'll give my two cents on this, and Terp, you can too. So I look at the Super Bowl, and I knew based on like Zach Toyo, who we've had on the show a couple of weeks ago, who won the best ball tournament, who inevitably won the $200 FFPC playoff challenge. We looked at this and we talked about this at the FFPC. We're like, we don't really see, like, it's going to take a Herculean effort to knock Toyo and to knock you, Kullin, off the top spots in these playoff challenges. I mean, I know you didn't want to think it, but at the same time, the realist in you, and I know you play a ton of stuff, you had to be thinking like, okay, I'm probably not going to be knocked off this perch. So when you talk about that 2-week sweat, and maybe it wasn't a sweat for you, but and you texted me on X, and you're like, hey man, I'm in first and second, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I texted Leo, my co-host, obviously, as you know, for my local show here. I said, Kullin is first and second, and he's second overall on the tour. So you had to know at that point, like, look, I don't want to count my money at this point, but at the same time, it's going to take a huge effort here. Were you looking at the players and the entries down the leaderboard? You're like, okay, I got to figure this out. What's it going to take for me to be unseated here?
Yeah, I immediately after the championship round, I looked at every team to see what I was fading. And in the $200, it was the one that was pretty much wrapped up. Rashee Rice needed to score outscore Travis Kelce by like 20, I believe, or something like that, or 15 when in the points double. But in the 35, there was a Pacheco team that actually got within 3 points in the first half. I don't know if you guys probably weren't sweating like I was, but Pacheco had a really good first half, and Kelce didn't do anything. He had one reception for like 3 yards, and the Pacheco team got within 3 points. So it wasn't. I actually thought, and he would have gotten first, so I would have knocked my first and second down to second and third, which is, I mean, it's
huge.
Still,
huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So
right.
And then the second half, Travis Kelce was Travis Kelce, and then it kind of put the game away. But it got a little sweaty for sure in the first half, and then leading up to the Super Bowl, it was probably the slowest 2 weeks I've ever had in my life. I've never had time go that slow. I think I need to book trips every 6 months or a year so I have something to look forward to, because with 3 kids, life goes too fast sometimes, and that really slowed it down for sure.
So let me ask you this, Kullin. You have and you may have told me this, and I apologize if you did and I forgot. You have 3 kids, two girls in gymnastics.
Yep, 2 girls in competitive gymnastics. That's pretty much like every weekend. Yep.
Right, exactly. Which is why we had to delay your appearance till now, which is fine. So my question, I got to think about this for a second. An 8-year-old daughter who became a Kansas City Chiefs fan because of Taylor Swift, because of Travis Kelce. Did you let your daughters stay up, or maybe they normally stay up that late anyway, but did you let your daughters stay up so they could rejuvenate Travis Kelce in the second half? I don't know if they're Taylor Swift fans or whatever, but did you let them stay up? So you had to let them okay, I need the mojo here, right?
Yes. Yeah, we were big Swifties. We were definitely big Swifties. And
love that.
Yeah, I have an 8-year-old daughter as well, and then a 10-year-old. So the 10-year-old was on her cell phone, not really interested, but my 8-year-old got into the game and was cheering for me. And every time they showed Taylor Swift, she was loving it. So they did a good job marketing.
Whatever it took.
The young audience that was definitely not interested before she was on the radar. So
Kullin, so when you were leading up to the Super Bowl, did you tell your family or friends or anybody about this to let them know how close you were?
A couple close friends and my wife and my brother who did the content. We split a team and did some, but other than that, I kind of try to keep it because I knew it wasn't final. I've been around long enough. Nothing's final until the last whistle is blown. So
smart man for sure. Okay, let's get into the minutia here. Enough of the showmanship leading up to the title for you. Your playoff challenge rosters. You did have multiple teams, but it's not like you had 50 plus teams or whatever.
Nope.
Which some people. So there's some nuance to this. There's some nuance in building these playoff rosters when you are starting to build. Whether you want to talk about the $35 or the $200, maybe there's not a difference for you. What's your process like when you're assembling these rosters that ultimately ended, getting you $200,000+ this year?
Yeah, so this is my second year doing this. Last year, me and my brother was our first year. We think we split a $200 team, and I did one by myself. This year, I got 6 in the best ball, so I had a little extra that I put into it. So we did the same thing. We built a team together, and then I put in 5 more into the 200, and I put 5 more myself in, and then I did 11 total in the 35. And the process was pretty just like we did last year. We kind of fill out a bracket. how we think the playoffs are going to go. And we go from there and we discuss which players from each team that we like. And we just kind of talk on the phone, assemble the team. And then after that, I sat and tinkered forever with the other teams. So there was so much going on this year with weather. And so this year was kind of a little bit different with that. With the Buffalo game getting moved to Monday, I believe it was, or Tuesday, whatever it was, Tuesday or Monday. Then the cold weather in Miami, which originally had 100% Miami fade, and I tinkered it to I actually went back and looked at my teams, and I had a lot more Tyreek Hill than I originally thought. It went with 0 and then tinkered my way into 60% or something. But yeah, there's not much of a process. You just fill out a bracket and kind of go from there.
Terp's going to ask you about his beloved Eagles in a second, but I have to give a
Toyo.
shout out. Yeah, Zach Toyo chiming in, he the guy who won, and as massive as your year was, he had another massive
ridiculous.
Yeah,
winning
my neck
the best
hurts from looking up at him all year long.
That was the best line on X. When I saw you tweet, that was fantastic. Yeah. But Zach Toyo, former guest of the show, saying, fortunate to survive the Zay Flowers chase down, epic conquest in both tourneys. You finished 6th to him in the best ball tournament, and Zach also won the $200 FFPC playoff challenge. Yeah. But here's the thing, Kullin. I know it stings that you did. He took home 700,000 plus. Yeah. But taking home 260,000 plus, nice little consolation prize, right?
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely. And I had the same team he did in the 35.
Right. Exactly.
That was the one of the 5 I didn't enter in the 200. But I mean, I can't complain about that. I could have went first and second in the big one too. But
do you want it? And Terp, last time I interrupt you, I promise. I want you to ask this Eagles question. Kullin, I saw your tweets. About all the people you want to give shout outs. Do you want to give a shout out to anybody live here tonight that helped you not only win the best ball tournament, but the playoff challenge as well?
Yeah. I mean, I watched that's kind of the background of this year is I actually put in the time and effort to try to get better at best ball. And that goes with watching content. I can't do all this by myself. And I follow a lot smarter people than I do. So, big one for the playoff challenge specifically. There was a lot more content this year, but the ship chasing crew with Mike Leone was on and Drew Dinkmeyer, if you're familiar with them, but they did an amazing job.
Yep.
They talked through, that's actually got me on the Justin Tucker build. I wanted to somewhat fade the Ravens, and I just didn't like any of their skill players. So I wanted to soft fade them with Tucker. And that was the build that got, the one with Toyo, the one that got first in the 35. So that was a big contributing factor. And then I read some articles here and there, but content was huge for me this year. I have a job where I drive around 50% of the time, and instead of listening to music this year, I just drill in fantasy football content, and Smart. It really paid off this year.
My beloved Eagles question: why Devonta Smith over AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert, or DeAndre Swift, or the rest of that bum team?
Jalen Hurts, whatever. Let's throw Hurts.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith was one of the few players I had on every single one of my teams. AJ Brown was coming in, even if he played. I was kind of upset because I already had Devonta Smith locked in, and then the news came out that AJ Brown was not going to play against Tampa, and that came before lock, which I was hoping would come after lock, but. I just thought he was going to get heavily targeted. Tampa Bay struggled against the pass. AJ Brown's coming in banged up, and I liked a lot of tight ends over Dallas Goedert. I love Njoku, and then Travis Kelce as well, and I just didn't want to play 3 tight ends. So I wanted Laporta even over. I would have played Laporta over. I would over him over Goddard. So yeah, that was an easy one for me. He was locked into every single one of my lineups. I loved him.
Paid off.
Yeah, it did. Kullin, you talked about you didn't want to play 3 tight ends. And I think if that's the case, well, twofold question here. Number one, why did you not want to play 3 tight ends? And number 2, why, and maybe this influenced your decision here, because you look at the Lions, Montgomery, Gibbs, Laporta, St. Brown. There's a lot of players that you could have gone with there. You ended up going with St. Brown. Talk a little bit about why you didn't want to go with that many tight ends. And then secondly, why Amon-Ra St. Brown, and maybe this figured in to your answer to the first question here, why you ended up going with St. Brown as your Lions representative here.
His target share is just too hard to pass up. He was just too heavily targeted. I knew if the Lions lost, he probably was going to get probably the most points scored. He was in the second one that I had in every single one of my lineups. It wasn't even a decision. He was too safe to pass up with how much he's targeted. So, and then actually the Gibbs team actually was charging up the leaderboard on the conference championship game, and San Francisco doesn't come back. I'm probably not on the show tonight either.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Oh,
well, listen, you're from Appleton. You would have been on the show eventually. So
you figured it out.
It's not like let's call a spade here. You would have been on the show, but it's good to hear you talking about that here. I think, and I don't know how much you're into 2024 drafts, but when you look at Laporta, when you look at St. Brown, either of those guys high on your list in a tight end premium format this year, Kullin?
Definitely. I love their whole offense.
Okay.
I love their whole offense. So yeah, Laporta, I was on him last year. I can't believe how cheap he was. This year, it's going to be tough for prices this year on ADP. I haven't really looked into the ADP. I know Jahmyr Gibbs is probably going early
first
second.
Round.
Late first early
round.
second.
Yeah.
Those prices are just. I'll have to just see, but yeah, I want a piece of that offense for sure.
Your sixth place best ball team. What were your favorite draft picks that panned out that got you in the running there? That obviously had a great season, finishing sixth, almost took it down. What picks do you look back at it? You said that was the golden one.
Kyron Williams, obviously.
I feel like that's the answer for most people.
Yeah. If you didn't really have Kyron Williams, you
were way behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
Kullin, let me ask you this about Kyron Williams. Do you remember? And I don't have your team in front of you, so I apologize. Do you remember roughly what round you took him in and what attracted you to Kyron Williams in 2023?
I drafted this team up north at my parents' place, and the reception is pretty spotty.
Hold on. I got to ask.
Please say got auto picked.
Hold on.
I got auto picked.
Hold on.
A couple. I did not with Kyron.
Hold on.
Not with Kyron.
Oh, man. I just to stay with the auto pick.
No.
That would have been better.
Hold on. We're going to do this. We're going to do this right way. Terp, to borrow a phrase from True Detective Season 4, you're asking the wrong question. The correct question is, where is up north? Where did you – because the Wisconsin people want to know. Kullin, where is up north?
Store.
Hold on.
Lakewood Mountain.
Lakewood Mountain. Okay, so I've never been in that area. What part of – is this Wisconsin or the UP of Michigan?
It's Wisconsin, yes.
Vilas County, or where is this?
Hour and a half north from Appleton, straight north on 47.
Oh, on 47. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to be passing this range next week when I do my ice fishing trip,
area.
Which will probably not be ice fishing.
There's no ice out there. So.
I was going to say we're going to be doing regular fishing, boat fishing this year. There's no ice fishing this year, but that's good to know where you're at this year. Okay, so I apologize. Keep going with your answer.
But I think I auto drafted two, but one was Mike Gesicki, which when I got back logged in, I saw I got auto drafted him. I was super tilted. But yeah, I drafted Kyron Williams. I believe he was my last 18th round pick, I believe.
Okay. Let's do this. Mart's D832. You may or may not know this guy.
I made the mistake of sending this link out to my fantasy football chat. So
they come in flocks.
Yeah. He wants to know what your favorite pizza is.
Yeah,
do you have a favorite pizza?
Yeah,
frozen,
the classic
whatever.
Cheese.
From anywhere? Anywhere?
Probably Cranky Pat's or Toppers. I mean, not Toppers.
Cranky Pat's is a good answer.
What's the other one? Appleton. I'm sorry, Pierre's.
Pierre Pizza. Yeah. It used to be Frank's Pizza Palace. Yeah. Oh God, we are dialed in tonight, my friend. Totally on this. For sure. Okay. All right.
Back to like the some of the other draft choices too that I wrote down that I liked were Jaden Reed and Jalen Warren were two. Which again, this is something that I'm going to lean on heavily this year in 2024. Is I did last year as well. Is drafting uncertain older running backups that are more talented. Younger, like last year was Cam Akers. I was drafting a lot of Kyron Williams, Miles Sanders. I was drafting a lot of Chuba Hubbard. Alexander Madison had a ton of
Ty Chandler.
Yep.
Jalen Warren for
Najee Harris. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to lead into that heavily again this year.
Okay, this is interesting, Cullen, because we have a rookie running back class coming in that is not necessarily top heavy, but it's fairly deep. So when you start drafting your best ball or your never too early best ball or what have you, you're going to start going in on these guys, not necessarily of how talented they are, but for what they represent. The younger guys that could take over for the older guys, which you have had a lot of success with this year. So the thing is, if you want to draft early, you don't necessarily have to know these guys, but you have to know what they represent. And that could be fantasy goodness in the best ball tournament.
Absolutely. And I haven't really looked in too much. It's been a whirlwind, so I haven't really done too much drafting or looked into the class all that much. But yeah, I'm and a lot depends on where they're drafted and the situation that they're drafted into. So.
Okay, so Zach Toyo chiming in on YouTube, and this is for the True Detective fans out there. Liz Danvers would swipe right on Balky. Listen, here's the thing. In real life, Liz Danvers, played by Jodie Foster, who is a lesbian, I believe, in real life. And I know she was not a lesbian on the show, but the fact if she is swiping right on me, I will take that as a compliment going forward. Do you guys watch True Detective or no? Or am I just alone in this?
I think I watched the first couple episodes of the first season, which was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm telling you, I told my wife, I said after, because we had the season 4 finale this past week, I told my wife, I'm like, we need to watch, because I've seen the first season, and if you've never seen True Detective before, it's an anthology. I don't know why we're getting into this, but we will. It's an anthology, so every season is totally different. Like, you don't have to see the first or the second or the third to understand future seasons. First season is what you want to watch, and we'll see what happens with my wife watching that with me. But it is fantastic. Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey, excellent work. Okay, now getting into the best ball tournament, or getting back to the best ball tournament, Colin. Week 17, you're in the championship round. I know that Toyo ended up winning it, but how close were you watching it? Was this a situation where Zach, like his team ended up exploding towards the end? How close were you watching your specific squad on that final weekend?
Yeah, Zach pretty much ran away with it. I was just trying to ladder and seeing how far I could get. I had Jordan Love and Jaden Reed, and they played Sunday night. Had a great first half. Jaden Reed ended up sitting out the second half, and Jordan Love, I think, maybe played the third quarter, but the Vikings weren't competitive. The game was kind of over. I could have possibly made it to third at the highest, maybe, if Jaden Reed plays the second half and it's competitive more. But no, I was just trying to. I was basically sweating the ladders at that point.
You kind of resign yourself to the outcome at that point. And was that Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? I forget.
That was Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
Okay. Wait, was it Christmas Eve?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I honestly don't remember.
I don't know.
Like, listen, all my teams are eliminated by that, so I wasn't watching closely.
Week 17, I thought was the next week. Was in like.
Hold on. Now, okay, so now I have to look at this.
Christmas Eve was week 16 because I believe Amari Cooper put up 50 that week, and I ran away with my league. So I think it was January something.
Right. So this would have been
New Year's Eve or whatever it is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Again, I had something going on that week, and it wasn't my fantasy football teams. So that would make sense. Well, no, like it's a blur for you. I'm not surprised that you don't remember it because you had all this stuff going on. I mean, the best ball tournament and then obviously the playoff challenge, you had that hit you in the face like a ton of bricks. It's been crazy. Let's get into how many emails do I have here tonight? I have 2 emails for you here, Cullen. Vern in Port Orange, Florida. Hi, Cullen. Did David Njoku did most of his damage with Joe Flacco and not Deshaun Watson. How do you handle him in drafts this season? So, Vern, thank you for the email in Florida. We appreciate that. As I look at the ADP, fantasymojo.com, David Njoku is the tight end 9 this year at the 601. My initial reaction here, Colin, is that that's going too high because of how successful he was with Flacco and how unsuccessful he was with Watson. But I'll let you weigh in. Tell me what you think about David Njoku as the tight end 9 in 2024.
Yeah, I would have to see who's going around before and after him. But
I can tell you. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. So Njoku, as I said, tight end 9. We are. Oh, let me just sort. Okay, this is the great thing about Fantasy Mojo. I can sort by position. So he is going as tight end 9. If you look at the other tight ends around him, Brock Bowers 508, George Kittle 508. Again, David Njoku 601, and then you're looking at Kyle Pitts 609, Jake Ferguson at the 701. So those are the 4 tight ends immediately around him. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I like the last 2 that you said over Bowers. I do like Bowers, but
Pitts and Ferguson you like better than
I would take Pitts out of all the group, and then probably Ferguson, and then Njoku, and then probably Bowers.
Okay, we got into this a little bit earlier, and we'll get into it now because we're going to get some concrete info. Trevor in the NYC, what's up, champ? How do you feel about Kyren Williams at the end of the first round this year? So Kyren Williams, as we and I'm citing all of this is FFPC never too early best ball draft data. Kyren Williams right now is the running back 5, Kullin. He is the running back 5 at the 202. He is going behind Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. He is going right in front of Jonathan Taylor and Devon Achane. Now, I will let my thoughts on Kyren Williams be known after you answer this. But Kyren Williams, running back 5, early in the second round. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I have a soft spot for Kyren
because of what happened last year.
Yeah. He was on a lot of my teams. I won my high school championship for the first time ever, surprisingly, with Kyren Williams. But that's just a tough click for me. I don't know. That just seems a little rich at the end of the first round. His volume's probably going to be there, and he's just a stud, but it's just a tough click for me at the end of the first.
Here's why. So I agree with you. And Terp, I'll let you weigh in on this as well. I cannot take Kyren Williams that high because even though as good as he was at the end of the season, I am not convinced that the Rams will not add somebody, not necessarily with free agency, but to add somebody on day 2 of the draft, a second or a third round pick. When you consider all these running backs, it's a deep running back class, not a top heavy running back class, but a deep running back class. And even if the guy is not great, if they draft somebody on day 2 of the draft, good or not, he is going to impact Kyren Williams' touches this year. And if he impacts Kyren Williams' touches this year, Kyren Williams becomes an immediate fade at running back 5 at the 202. Terp, your thoughts?
100% agree with you. I mean, I can't pull the plug. I mean, he's a first-round pick. I'm just not there. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, things might not change. But right now, if he doesn't fall at all, I'm out at that ADP. I mean, I just think that there's just much better players that you can get right around that level, especially receivers, and build a team a little bit different than taking that, what most people are going to say is a risk. I mean, he obviously proved it, but to me, it's just too rich for my blood.
Okay. All right. I get it. And it makes perfect sense. Terp, I'm going to let you get number 9 here, the penultimate final question for Kullin tonight as we look at 2024 drafts.
We ask everybody this question, and I know you haven't done much drafting yet, but is there somebody that you're exciting on drafting? Maybe it's a rookie that you like a lot in 2024. And is there a player that you will be off? Let's just say early on. I know, like I said, you haven't done many drafts, but just through news and then rookies and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm on a bunch of second-year players. It's going to be a homer pick, but I love Jaden Reed this year. I've been calling him Mini Debo for the last season. I just think he does a lot of similar things that Debo does. Packers seem to love him getting the ball in his hands. And another Jaden rookie that I'm excited to draft this year is Jaden Daniels. I love his upside in best ball. Depending on what the Bears do, I don't love Caleb Williams going to the Bears. I love him as a talent. I don't know about the coaching and how much they're going to be running. So I love Jaden Daniels, even Drake May. And then you guys were talking about him before, but Jacobs is off. He's off my draft board. A couple of the other older running backs like Eckler and David Montgomery are also no-goes for me.
I think, not that I'm necessarily as a Packers fan rooting for the Bears to take Caleb Williams. I just know if they take Caleb Williams, I am definitely fading Caleb Williams.
We'll find a way to screw it up.
That's my
it's the
like.
Bears,
Listen,
man. They always
here's
do.
the thing: we have a lot of Bears fans who watch us. A lot of guys in Chicago who watch us. But like, I'm just going by past history, and I don't really see a.
They always find a way.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, Turp. They always find a way to screw this up. Final question for you here tonight, Kullin. $260,000 with the best ball tournament, FFPC playoff challenge, both the $200 level and the $35 level. You have a ton of cash that is at your disposal. Do you have any plans? What are you going to be spending this money on? This newfound money, this quasi life-changing money. Any earmarks to this cash?
Yeah, I'm just going to fix up my current house, get it ready to sell, upgrade a little bit so each one of my children can have their own bedrooms. And that's pretty much it. I am going to play the main event for the first time.
Oh, sure. You going to come to Vegas?
Come out to Vegas. Hang out with us for sure. Yes.
No, I am. Yeah.
Awesome. Couple of things with Kullin here. And Kullin, you may or may not know this. You probably don't know this. Okay, so number one, I don't know if you listen to me and Leo in the afternoons. Do you know Troublemaker El Grande when we referenced him?
Yep.
Okay, Troublemaker El Grande, my best friend, his grandmother lived on the same street that you live on right now.
Francis.
As well as my best friend from grade school, because I saw your address, and I'm like, holy cow, my best friend from grade school.
This might be your favorite show of all time.
It's blowing my mind, Turp. It is absolutely blowing my mind.
All the guests you've had on here, and this guy literally lives 10 minutes from you.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
And by the way, Kullin, no pressure, but I'm at my office doing the show. After the show is over, I'm going across the street to Riverside Bar and Grill. Leo is out there. We're gonna watch.
I'll be there.
Perfect.
I'll stop for one.
We're gonna watch the rest of the Bucks Timberwolves games. If you come out, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely.
We will continue to follow you, Kullin at Kullin23 on X. Congratulations on all your success in 2023. Listen, the 2024 is a spring off point, and I will see you out in Las Vegas at Turf World too when you were drafting live at Planet Hollywood. And quite frankly,
beer's on me.
There you go. Thank you. And the way things are going for you might be $1 million trip for you as well. So, yes. Thank you so much for hopping aboard, and I will see you shortly, Kullin. Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Congrats again.
Cheers. Thank you. I'll do that as well. Thank you, Kullin. Kullin Hoffman at Kullin23 on the X. The sixth place finisher in the 2023 FFPC Best Ball Tournament. The winner of the $35 FFPC Playoff Challenge and the runner-up in the $35 Playoff Challenge and the runner-up in the $200 Playoff Challenge as well. Terp, quite frankly, I think him and Zach Toyo, they team up. Nobody's going to stop him in 2024.
Seriously,
right?
I mean, I'm dancing in these streets. It's not easy to beat either of them.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's crazy. All right, we do not have a ton of time left here, but I want to get to a couple of emails. Terp, you are the guest co-host this week. I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to give you dealer's choice here. We can do an email on Kyle Pitts, Anthony Richardson, Kenneth Walker, or Dalton Kincaid. You're going with Pitts?
Kyle Pitts.
Okay, perfect. So Gary in Pittsburgh, this is his email. I feel like I email about this every single year, but how do you guys feel about Kyle Pitts now? Now, the interesting thing with this is, and I thought I saw a blurb. Maybe it was on Roto World. I'm going to look it up right now. I thought I saw a blurb about this. The new head coach there is Raheem Morris, who is he's a defensive guy. He's a defensive guy and hired Zach Robinson from the Rams as the new offensive coordinator there.
Yep. And
Zach Robinson said Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson have formational versatility, which means they can move them all over in formations to try to get them open. Recently, Kevin Kroger, the Falcons tight ends coach, says that Kyle Pitts is an asset not only in the passing game but in the running game as well. To me, this suggests that Pitts is going to be out there a lot more, which is great. You love to see it. Terp, right now, Kyle Pitts, ADP in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Tight end 10, at the 609. To my knowledge, you can corroborate this. He's never been lower as far as his ADP goes. Kyle Pitts this year, tight end 10 at the 609. What are you doing with him, man?
Give me all of it. Every single one of it. I've never been on Kyle Pitts. We've known what I thought of Arthur Smith. That thankfully he's not there anymore. Zach Robinson is the real deal. He's a guy that I was hoping the Eagles would target as their offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore is fine. No disrespect to him. But, I mean, you saw the Rams offense last year, and that offense was buzzing. Puka developing. I mean, Cooper Kupp regressed a little bit. DeMarcus Robinson coming out of nowhere. Tight ends that really weren't that involved, but they don't have a talent like Kyle Pitts.
Right.
And we're not even going to get to the Bijan Robinson because that's a whole different story. And he is through the – I think he's the number one overall player. Potential. I mean, everything is there for him. You saw the workload that Kyron Williams got. I mean, there is nothing you could say negative about Bijan Robinson this year in that offense. If it's not this year with these guys, then maybe they just aren't good enough because Zach Robinson's coming there and he is going to let that offense. If they get Justin Fields or, I don't really want Russell Wilson there. I think Justin Fields fits it a little bit better. I like Justin Fields. But if they can start the team with Fields, Robinson, Pitts, and Drake London, the Falcons could be a massive problem in the NFC. I mean, they're a quarterback away from being very, very good at figuring it out. That's the issue right now is they're probably too far down to get a quarterback to get one of these young rookies. And the free agent class, Kirk Cousins, Fields, Wilson, etc.
It sounds like Fields is the odds-on favorite for the Falcons and Wilson's the odds-on favorite for the Steelers.
That's what everybody's saying. I mean, we know how these things change. I mean, there's just not a lot of guys out there. We saw Jimmy G getting suspended for the first 2 games. Saw that the other day, just totally out of left field. So he's a guy that you're not going to see probably. He's pretty much undraftable because he's not going to start. I mean, no team's going to just give him the job right away after missing 2 games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Kyle Pitts, 6th round, I'll take him there and be very, very happy with it. It's just hard this year because I looked the other day for the first time at the ADP and then in the early best ball drafts, and it's all over the place. I mean, you look at guys like Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, guys that were free agent darlings, in home leagues, and you got Trey McBride. I drafted him more than anybody last year in the teens. You're not going to see him in the teens anymore. Jake Ferguson was a guy that didn't even get drafted in some leagues. Same type of situation. So it's just finding that tight end this year. And I'm okay. Cheap Kyle Pitts, it's worth the risk. He has the draft capital. If they can get a quarterback there with all the other weapons they have, and the coaches are speaking him up, it could be a top 5 tight end Kyle Pitts here.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's again, Terp, you know this better than anybody. This guy has been polarizing every single year he has been in the league from his rookie year till now. And
some of it has been his problem. I mean, but most of it was the idiot that was the head coach. Let's just call it what it is.
That's true. I mean, factually,
I was hoping I never had to speak on Arthur Smith again, but then he got an offensive coordinator job with the Steelers, which is a nightmare because the Steelers offensively was just a complete nightmare as it was. Now we get to deal with him.
This is great knowledge here, Terp. Let's touch on that Steelers thing real quick. You don't like it, the fact that Arthur Smith is there as the OC. Does that mean you're fading Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren? Your thoughts on the Steelers
scenario
offense?
in Pittsburgh right now? I mean, what's best case scenario? Justin Fields. Worst case scenario is a dusty Russell Wilson, likely. I mean, they're going to be a team that's going to Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, rinse and repeat. I mean, you're going to see them guys get a ton of carries, and somebody in the George Pickens, Deontay Johnson is going to get work, just like Drake London got work.
Right.
But, is it going to be enough to warrant, taking them as early as they're going? I don't know. I mean, Arthur Smith didn't throw a lot of deep balls. George Pickens, that's what he does, the best. These deep, throws down, I don't see it. So, I don't know. I was hoping the Steelers got some young, bright offensive mind because they have the talent. Have the running back position. They have receivers. They have, Pat Freiermuth at tight end. But Arthur Smith is just a fossil. And it's just people say, oh, he's going to change as the offensive coordinator. let's just clarify. In Tennessee, they weren't setting the world on fire with anybody either. It was just Derrick Henry show, and Ryan Tannehill had some good years. He never was a fantasy superstar. So, I mean, to me, it's just Steelers are going to be, if they're cheap enough, best ball, but like I could never imagine starting a Steelers receiver in redraft as of February 23rd.
Right. I think it's important to understand here. Like, and this goes into kind of what I talk. Well, I didn't talk about this at the top of the show, but drafting for best ball teams in January and February is different than drafting and managed teams in July.
I couldn't even imagine these people that are doing fantasy pros drafts right now. I clap it up for you. I salute you. You guys are just absolute degenerates because there's just so many. I mean, every year we talk about these first couple shows. We talk about like the moving parts of the league, but I feel like this year more than any other year, we have a lot of unknown in the rookie class. We have Marvin Harrison being drafted in the second, third round of just total unknown. Yeah. If he goes to New England, I mean, he's going to drop multiple rounds. Yeah, if he goes to Arizona, which is probably the lowest he would go, that definitely helps him with Kyler Murray. But who the heck knows what the Patriots are going to do? And then you have all these free agent running backs that are out there that are just the Pollards that we talked about. Saquon Barkley. Where the heck's he going? He's getting drafted in the second round.
Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry.
Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. Keep going on the list of all these guys that were last year. You're taking them in the first, second round.
Right.
Nick Chubb, like what happens there? Like, does he come back? Is he healthy? Like, TJ Hawkinson. There's just so many questions of guys that are coming off major injuries. Aaron Rodgers, is he 100%? Does he care? Because that depends on everything on first round Breece Hall, first round Garrett Wilson. We could go on just the questions. I feel like this year I don't know if I'll be starting as early as I did, just because, I mean, yeah, you can get some. I'll mess around early on, but like, I feel like there's a lot more pitfalls than there are success stories in these early drafts. Just my
I feel like the people that mess around early, it's a twofold benefit in my opinion. And this is what I've seen before. The people that mess around, number one, will hit on stuff from time to time. And number two, they're better prepped for June, July.
And they're learning, which I've noticed. I did a couple small stakes drafts this week, just trying to just get a lay of the land. And I remember looking at my first draft, sent it to a friend of mine. He was like, "Are you drunk? Like, what the hell is going on?" I'm like, I was confused. And then like after you do the first one and you start like, I'm a big stacker, you start, figuring things out. But man, like you look at this class and, I've done some research on the rookie class, but not as much as some of these dynasty guys or these guys who just literally breathe the draft. But there's a lot of unknown in the rookie class too. And there's no sure things outside the first couple guys. Obviously the quarterbacks are top heavy, but there's a ton of questions early on. And if you can figure out the landmines, you could be sitting with some just monster early teams.
To quote former Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, it's a beautiful mystery.
But one thing, Jordan Love to the moon.
I love him. Like I was cautiously.
No bigger fan of Jordan Love, and that Green Bay, the future is bright with him. They figure it out. They get them receivers healthy and then continue to evolve. Aaron Jones comes back there, stays healthy. The offensive line, defense is obviously the question. They get some guys in there, some dogs in the draft. Packers could be the favorite right behind the 49ers right now in the AFC. In the NFC.
You know what's crazy? What's crazy about that, Terp, is you think about what Jordan Love did this year with not only a super young. I don't want to turn this into a Packers thing, but I will.
It's okay.
In honor of Kullin Hoffman. What he did this past season with a super young group of receivers, pass catchers, we'll say, because I want to include the tight ends and running backs, was insane. And then when you couple that with how injured players were this year, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, I mean, all these guys, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, they all missed time due to injury.
The defense, Jair Alexander was out most of the year.
Yeah, and that's another good point. So for me, and I understand there's probably going to be a sophomore slump. There's probably going to be a certain reaction to Love that from defenses, and they have they finished second place in the NFC North, so they're going to face the second place schedule this year. So I think that there's going to be some lumps this year, but no question when you consider what it takes to be a quarterback in the NFL and what it takes to find a quarterback in the NFL, Jordan Love and the Packers are a match made in heaven.
They had the 49ers beat. He'll never get that experience back, but he'll He'll never get that experience back, but he'll learn from it.
They will learn from
that game. They should have won. Anybody that watched that game, they were the better team that day. They just got stupid at the end of the game, lost a little composure, and they got beat by the better overall team.
Right. Better roster and more veteran.
You sit there and you watch the way they played against the Cowboys, and you watch the way they played against the 49ers for most of the game. There's not a way that anybody, if you're a Packers fan or not a Packers fan, can't be excited about that team.
I go back to the 90s when Green Bay had the Favre and Sharp teams,
and nobody saw it coming either.
Well,
you start last year, even Packers fans weren't. They never thought they'd be sitting here now with what could be with that team.
Mo Jenkins, our buddy from Vegas. Terp, cut it out. It's Cowboys all the way. Well, listen.
That's my guy. That's my guy, man. But we both don't have anything to say this year. We were going back and forth in Vegas, and he's a good dude, and we have some fun with it.
Dude, yeah.
But we both can't say anything right now because both teams are just not. The Cowboys are probably the better team right now, but who knows what's going on in Philadelphia right now? The media is just we can have a whole show on that.
Right. Toyo chiming in. Jordan Love is a flat out baller. Give me the Goody draft prop that he will take a tackle in the first round. It could happen. The Packers have
defense.
5 picks.
Offensive line defense.
Right. They have 5 picks in the top 90 picks. So certainly that should be good for them going forward. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with the Packers. And by the way, Terp, I looked at this prop. It was probably a month or so ago. But the favorites to win the NFC, first, second, and third. The Niners were the favorites. Second place was the Lions as far as odds go. And not far behind in third place was the Green Bay Packers. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. Going forward. We are way over time. Terp, I appreciate you hopping on short notice tonight to fill in for the ailing and hopefully a guy, Ferrell Elliott, who will be back for next week's High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We will continue to follow you on X at Dave Terp. Congratulations on your 2023 season. We will have much more live draft coverage with you coming up in 2024. Can't wait to have you on again. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Have a good night, man.
Thank you. That is Dave Terp, ladies and gentlemen, chiming in on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour at Dave Terp on the X. Okay, my goodness, what a show. We have to get out because it's been way too long tonight. Thanks to Kullin Hoffman, the pride of Appleton, Wisconsin. No, it's not Balky. It is Kullin Hoffman, who is the pride of Appleton, Wisconsin. I want to thank Dave Terpoli for chiming in tonight, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. Now, special programming note. Next Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be doing a show. Not Friday. There is no show this coming Friday. We will be moving it up to Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll be talking with 20-time FFPC League champion Andy Brown, a guy who participated in the first Fantasy Pros draft, Fantasy Pros Championship draft of 2024. He will be our guest. You can watch last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network on any of the FFPC social channels with Dynasty Countdown Draft Sharks Shane Hallam. If you're playing in Dynasty or if you're drafting early, you need to watch this episode because Shane dropped so much science on a lot of the rookies this year. Check that out at any of the FFPC socials. This coming Thursday, 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll go live again with the Analytics of Dynasties, Jordan McNamara, formerly of Football Guys from the Dynasty Think Tank podcast. Jordan McNamara will be my guest. So a lot of Dynasty rookie stuff that episode as well. The 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship draft is the 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship drafts are live right now. You can draft with a 30, 60, or 2-hour or 6-hour clock to try to win $1 million, including some drafts tonight that I think are going off in less than an hour. Watch last night's Shane Hallam show on the Better Sports Network. Check out the Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments, myffpc.com, myffpc.com, $25,000 grand prize in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament at a $125 grand prize. You can also win a $10,000 grand prize with a $35 entry fee for the Never Too Early Best Ball Superflex Best Ball tournament as well. And by the way, if you're looking to play FFPC or fantasy football in general for 365 days a year, myffpc.com, pick up some Dynasty Orphan teams there. Numerous squads have already had their 2024 entry fees lowered to $1. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and get notified every time we go live on the FFPC Best Ball channel. Thank you so much for watching tonight. For Kullin Hoffman, the pride of Appleton, Wisconsin, and Dave Tripoli, I'm Eric Balkman. We'll talk to you again, not next Friday, next Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much for watching.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Just want to remind everybody, if you are looking for, here's the thing. Anybody can join a slow draft at this point of the year. You want to draft at the 6-hour pace, the 2-hour pace, whatever. But if you want to draft with the 30 or 60 second or a live draft, timer, we have plenty of drafts going on this weekend with the FantasyPros Championship, the Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments. And with the FantasyPros Championship, you'll get a live commissioner. It's going to be me this weekend. So I encourage you to sign up for those. We already had one draft go off live this week. We've had several slow drafts go off as well. So if you're looking to win $1 million in fantasy football this year, no better time to start than February 23rd, 2024. Check it out, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Got to go hang out with Kullin now. We will talk to you very soon here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. See you on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time.